Good afternoon. I want to thank everybody for coming. I'm Bill Lazar. I'm the director for the St. John's Housing Partnership. We are one of the owners, along with Gorman USA, of Southern Villas. Southern Villas is really a perfect example of what we need across Florida, because it's something that's not going on a lot right now. It exists because of a private partnership with private developers. Many of y'all may know Chester Stokes. He and Lead Silverfield built this with USDA financing and HUD in 1981. That's how long this property has been here. If it wasn't for Megan Wall at Legal Aid, St. John's Housing Partnership would not have bought this in 2009. And the reason we did is because both HUD and USDA see how important affordable housing properties are. They put it into their mortgage clauses that when the mortgage terms out, the for-profit owners are allowed to sell it, but there's a 6-month window that they have to offer to nonprofits who are going to maintain and preserve that affordability for years forward. I knew nothing about apartment complexes and rental property and everything else, but Megan called us up and she said, there's 70 seniors that live there. And if we don't keep this in our affordable housing portfolio, it'll go to condos. This was back in the last building boom. It would have turned into condos. They would have been homeless or have to move out of county, out of state. So it was our first experience with it. What really struck me about it was I've been working in affordable housing for 30 years. I actually started in Duval County, hired by a group of social workers who wanted to make improvements to homes where seniors live so they could remain living independently. And that's really what this is all about at the level of for people who don't own their homes. This allows about 69 seniors to remain living independently for as long as they're able to do. We have, 1% financing through USDA. We have HUD Section 8 vouchers that allows them to live here. Some of our tenants live on less than $13,000 a year. So for any of us that try and figure out how you pay rent and do that, I don't know how they do it. We have great partnerships. Dimension One has been managing this property for years, and if it hadn't been for how well they managed it, and Chester probably gave them permission to manage it well, I would have been scared off. But it was in great shape then. We have completely renovated the property with Gorman's help, and if it wasn't for Hana, I never would have figured out how to get into a tax credit property. But we have improved this property with everything from all the bathrooms are accessible. We now have roofs that will outlast me, which is good because we have to own it for the next 50 years. But it's going to be a huge permanent part of St. Johns County's affordable housing portfolio at a time where we can't find enough affordable housing for our seniors. So this is really huge. And we continue to find people in the community that want to help support it. COA has, they have staff here 40 hours a week to help our seniors remain living independently, just with those day-to-day things of managing money, paying bills, or whatever. And we've got community groups from, the Council on Aging helps us recruit that come here. We had a church here 2 weekends ago just to create bingo here in this nice brand new community room, to get our folks to come out, because the whole part about staying independent is you got to stay active mentally and physically, and that's what COA is really doing. So it's a tremendous help to us. We got the University of Florida's Ag Center came out, helped us design. We put in landscaping, but it's all drought tolerant. We're not going to be watering it. We're not going to be wasting water. Once it's stable, it will remain on its own, and that's really critical when you've got to manage your expenses and everything else. We're not putting a sprinkler system back in. We're not going to need it, just because of the things that we learned through the University of Florida and these kind of programs. So this is kind of the future of Florida, I think, in a lot of ways. We haven't figured out how we can double and triple these kind of programs, but it's really what we're going to need. St. Johns County, the last report I saw, there's 5,000 seniors in St. Johns County that spend more than 50% of their income on housing. And that's huge, because those are folks that are our next crisis. They end up, if rent goes up $20, they can't make it. They slip and fall because they live someplace where it's not well maintained or anything else. This really is a way to keep them living here. And when you sit and look at it, it's incredibly cheap, as opposed to if they were forced to move into some kind of assisted living where we're going to spend $30,000 or $40,000 a person trying to care for them while they figure out what their next steps are. So, we're really proud of it. I thank Gorman every day for doing this, because I don't know how we could keep up a property if it wasn't for the tax credit program they put together. But and It's what we need. Commissioner Johns, I talk to him all the time about what we need in St. Johns County, but it's this public-private partnership that's so critical. And St. Johns is booming. I mean, if anything, we have, a lot of business going on here. But I can tell you right now, the only developers doing affordable housing are nonprofits. And that's essentially market failure, because we need to figure out what does it take to get other developers into doing this at whatever level it is that we need, but we're not there yet. And so those are the kind of things, and we hope this sort of showcases and sort of stimulates some ideas about, okay, so what does it take to do something else like this? Because it stabilizes our community, it improves our entire quality of life, and it's for everybody. So we're thrilled. Congressman Rutherford, I'll give you an opportunity to come up and talk to people for a few. We appreciate you coming out and seeing what's been accomplished.
Thank you. Listen, I just want to thank you, Bill, and Gorman for taking the opportunity during that 6-month period to really step in and rescue this property for those seniors. Because thank you. Because I can tell you, most developers are chasing a dime, or a dollar. Most of them are chasing more than a dollar. But that's I think that speaks volumes to the folks that are involved in this project. And when you can get local, state, and federal working together for our seniors, those who are cost burdened, they're spending 30% or more of their income just on rent. Folks, that I don't know how they do it. And without this group, and it is a group, without this group having stepped in during that window of opportunity and taking that on, a lot of seniors would have been in dire, dire straits in St. Johns County. So thank you all for what you've done. I cannot, I recently lost my mother, who was a senior at 89, and I can tell you affordable housing is important. How we treat our seniors, my mother, thank God, was living with my sister, and but a lot of these seniors don't have family that they can depend on. And but for me or my sister, I don't know what my mother would have done. So to know that there are seniors out there who are being provided for by folks who really are about more than just the money, I think speaks volumes to your efforts. So my hat's off to all of you. Thank you very much, and God bless.
Commissioner Johns with St. Johns County listens to us talk about this all the time. We're always before the commission. We're always talking about this. It is a big part of what we need, and I appreciate him coming and taking a few minutes to say hello to us.
Thank you. It's partnerships like this that make it possible to provide a clean, safe place for people to live in their older years. My grandmother raised 3 kids by herself that were under 7 years old. Thanks to affordable housing, they had a clean, safe place to go to bed, to call home. And because of that, they were able to grow up. My father was the first one to go to college in our family, on his side of the family. And because of that, she did not have to rely on fixed income housing when she was older. She was, like you mentioned with your family, able to rely on family to be able to live a modest lifestyle as she got older. A lot of people are not that fortunate. And it's because of these types of partnerships that stretches dollars, that enables benefits to more people throughout our community. Bill has some of the most creative ways to stretch a dollar and to find resources. He deserves the credit among the people who made this possible. I do not. This is the fun part of being a commissioner, is for me to come here and say thank you sincerely for providing the funding, for finding the resources and the dots to connect in order to benefit so many people from a community that's been here for quite a few years. I remember this many years ago. It looked very different. It's been well maintained. A lot of places were not so fortunate during the recession. A lot of individuals were not as fortunate during the recession. But it's the people in our community, in our county, that make us number one in so many ways. We can have policies in place and we can find money, but if it's not the people who have the heart to help each other out, not just to make another dollar, we would not be in the position that we are in as a county, as a community like this, or as individuals as we sit here today. All of us, I think I can safely say, can thank somebody else for where we are, for helping us to become who we are. And that's one of the reasons I'm a commissioner, is to give back to the community, to help connect the dots, to find the resources in order to help people that are doing the best they can and still can't make ends meet. I'm very conscientious as our community grows and the cost of living goes up, of the people that are on a fixed income and a low income, and the ones who've been here for decades, that we don't want to price them out of their homes. This is home to people that know nothing else for generations. And it changes, and change can be scary. But with opportunities like this is a perfect example of how we can make it a little less scary, make it a comfortable place for people to live their last years. And one day, by the grace of God, I'll be there as well. So I want to thank you for your time in making this possible. I really do. Thank you very much.
Hello, how are you? I'm Hana Eskra. I'm not actually clear that Bill was thanking me every single day while we were doing this project, but most days. I'm with Gorman and Company. We started this 4 years ago? 4 years ago, we started talking about how we are going to find the money for this. We are actually a national company. We work in 6 states. I handle the stuff that we do in Florida. We probably own 70 plus affordable housing projects across the country, so we're fairly big. You know, before I do these things, Bill talked about some stats, but before I do these, I always like to look at the statistics for the community that I'm in just to see what those statistics look like. And Bill did mention, I mean, I had the over 5,000 folks who are cost burdened right now, which means they are paying more than 30% of their income for their housing expenses and utilities. And that's almost 20% of your senior population here. So that is a huge number of folks. And that trend, when you look at the trending, is going up. It's not going down. It's a scary, scary number of what's going on. In Florida, because I work statewide, we have 500,000 seniors, low-income seniors who are cost-burdened in this state, and 1.5 households who are cost-burdened. It's very serious, and again, all that trending is going up. And then the national stat that maybe scares me the most, even though those are scary, is that the median retirement age, so half of the people in this country ages 55 to 61 have less than $17,000 in their savings. Half of these folks. So 10 years from now, when these people are ready to retire, I literally am very concerned for what is going to happen to these people. The good news is, as Bill said, that's not going to happen to these residents. These folks are not going to be cost burdened. Because of this renovation, we have extended the useful life of these buildings for decades. They will be here for decades. They will be available for the residents here. We have seniors who are in the workforce, who were in the workforce in St. John's. We have vets here. We have folks with disabilities here. 20% of our residents here are over 80. These folks are aging in place here. And as Bill talked about, we did a full renovation. Windows, doors, the roofs you guys can see look beautiful. Electrical systems, flooring. We expanded the community room. We added a social services office so that we can provide the services to these people so they can stay in place and age in place for as long as we can possibly have them here. And again, as Bill said, this was a true public-private partnership with a for-profit and a nonprofit development team. We stretched everybody who was involved in this project. The folks with rural development know that for sure, that we stretched everybody to get this done. We have funding from 2 federal government agencies, U.S. HUD, and to allow rent subsidies so we can serve very, very low-income folks, and from rural development, who both funded the acquisition of this and did some gap financing for us to fund parts of the renovation for this. We We have a state agency, Florida Housing Finance Corporation, who allocated the low-income housing tax credits. There's a bipartisan House bill and Senate bill going through right now that will rename it the Affordable Housing Tax Credit, and I really like that name better. It does some expansion, it does some other things, but I really would like to rebrand because we serve the workforce, we serve seniors, we serve a lot of folks. We also, even though St. Johns County did not actually provide funding, we spent a lot of time working with them. You know, their permitting, site plan approvals, their inspectors. We had some deadlines we had to meet on our funding side. Their inspectors came when we needed them to do the sign-offs that we needed. So we literally worked with every level of government here. On the private side, TD Bank was a great partner, and I'm not saying that just because you're here, Chris. Because they're another one that we needed to stretch a little bit to help, get this worked out. But they both provided the bridge financing that bridged the equity that came in for the tax credits, and they are also the purchasers of the tax credits. So their equity is actually sitting in this project with USDA, with HUD. So we really are fully layered. The National Equity Fund acted as the middle person, connecting us with TD Bank. So they were also involved in this as well. So I need to thank everybody who was involved in this. Because of all the levels of government and the different funding we had to request, we had some non-traditional requests that we needed to put in to get this to work. Yeah, Bill's laughing, he knows. And that doesn't always happen because it's just not always possible when you layer all of these programs to get the program requirements to match with what you did. But everybody who we worked with came up with very creative solutions to help us stay within the program parameters, but also really get this project done. I really, particularly rural development and TD Bank, I know that some of the folks would see me call and just go, oh no, what is she calling about now? But people really stepped up and were just great about this. Need to thank Dimension One, our property managers, and St. John's Council on Aging. We had to temporarily relocate 60 senior households because we had to temporarily move folks out and then move them in. They did the heavy lifting around that, so imagine taking your senior parent and moving that senior parent out. They did that 60 times. It was just it was a very challenging, and it got done, and it was on time, and it never stopped construction. We were able to get folks moved in and moved out. It was just great. And those folks are going to continue to provide property management services, those things that we need here. Want to thank again Gorman. We have our architect here. We didn't have our construction team, didn't come down, but those folks, were on the ground making sure that this worked. I think you're happy with construction. Okay, just checking. That's good. And I want to thank St. John's Housing Partnership. I mean, I'm laughing, but I also stretched Bill in terms of, talking about how we get this done and how we're going to do the financing and how we're going to do the ownership and how this is going to work within the parameters of the tax credit project. And so, we've gotten to the end now, 4 years later, Bill, and it looks good. Thank you all for being here. Appreciate both congressmen's support, the local support. We've got our state representatives here. This really is a project. It really, really is needed in this community. And it was a fun one to work on, despite stretching everybody. So thank you all. Tim, are you want to do it? We're going to bring Tim Rogers up, with U.S. Rural Development, USDA Rural Development, the person that I think we stretched the most to get this done. Thank you, Tim.
Thank you, Hana. Again, my name is Tim Rogers. I'm the Multifamily Housing Program Director for USDA Rural Development here in Florida. And Bill mentioned earlier about we've been involved for decades with this property, since 1981. And when you talk about a partnership and things changing and they have to be fluid and kind of roll with the punches and so forth. You know, Bill, you mentioned about 2006, 2009 area. Okay, we first looked at getting involved with this again through a special kind of a demonstration program in 2009, and we had a third loan that was set aside for the property and a loan deferral that was set aside on loan payments to try to make this thing work and get it rehabbed. And then all of a sudden we come in, now we got tax credits involved. Hana gets involved, and you know, they were saying they've been involved since 2013. And again, we started this in 2009 through this program. So it's rolling with the punches and going on and going. And architects crews were involved. I have John Secleter with me today. John's our state architect out of Gainesville and worked very closely together with the group here. Long story short, there's nothing more that I can say that hasn't been said, except, you know, when you talk about the different partners you have here in the partnership, okay, how many of you are familiar with quail hunting, bird hunting? Okay. Bill, I've only known Bill for a couple years. Bill's a bird dog. Bill, just imagine quail hunting where you got your dog out there going all through the grass and you're looking for a quail, they're all scattered. That man will find them right there. That man will find them. So, I said, I didn't know Bill from Sikkim when I come in the chair, but I learned who he was pretty quick, and I learned what he was capable of doing very quickly. You have a very resilient neighborhood community here. Tenants are that way. These are not easy to put together, just like you said, moving tenants around, and there's a lot of pieces of the puzzle. And not only are the pieces of puzzle, they're moving. Just like I mentioned earlier, they're moving, they're fluid. So this is one of the nicest properties I've ever seen. The way it's been rehabbed. Metal roofs are kind of a new concept for me anyway. John really likes them and pushed them, and the group did too. This is nice. Removed, what'd you say, 80 trees, 90 trees?
We took out 80 trees. 2 weeks before the hurricane, we had pulled out 80 trees.
Took 80 trees. Try to address the parking lot.
We got lucky.
So got lucky. But anyway, you know, congratulations, and we are honored to be a part of this, and to be able to see what this has transpired through the years. You're ahead of the curve. You're ahead, you know, because we've got in USDA rural development in our portfolio, we have about 450 properties representing about 20,000 units. Okay, this is one property with 60 units. So. This one's behind us for a while, and we've got a lot more to go in front of us. But affordable housing will be needed. There's only going to be the increased need for you know, aging in place and having those accommodations and requirements that's going to be needed. So anyway, thank you.
You're on, Chris. So Chris is with TD Bank, and they really, you were very good to work for, or work for. They're very flexible with us with the moving pieces, and I'm telling you, I work with a lot of banks, and they're not necessarily as accommodating to our challenges. So thank you, Chris.
Excellent, thank you. Listen, TD's always happy to participate in these types of opportunities. We've done deals all over our footprint. We make investments probably north of about $350 to $400 million a year. We're happy to be the long-term partner in this property, and we congratulate everybody on the tremendous effort and decades of effort that it takes to keep this going. It's beautiful. Thank you.
All right, we're cutting. Ready, set,
Cut.
Yep, cut away.
Oh, it does work.
Our pleasure. You too. Thank you for everything. All you do on this bird dog.
I'm not gonna let